I think it's time and we can get started. Welcome, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying all the sessions we had today. We primarily covered a number of different tech topics and product design topics over the course of the day, and thanks to everybody who's been following closely to the sessions. We have a slightly different focus now, and it will be rather oriented on a specific domain where we apply these types of expertise that you heard about throughout the day. It is my great pleasure to announce our Director of Engineering and Delivery, Bojan Šukalo, who's joining us from Banja Luka, and who will tell us a bit more how we brought kind of a new way of thinking and some new aspects to digital product development and other services that we have to the telco industry. And he is supported in this presentation and Q&A with his team members, Natasha Laketa and Nenad Latinovic. So Bojan, please feel free to share your screen. And just to let everybody know who's listening in, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A. Once we're done with the presentation, we'll go through all of your questions and discuss them. So Bojan, please get started.
Thank you, Katarina, for the nice introductory. And I'll try and share the presentation. Okay, so let me skip over this section. This looks like from Teen Magazine, so I'm gonna skip this and let me focus on today's presentation and basically to try and explain the approach that we have in the planning the network and infrastructure access networks, that is the right term here, and how we did it for the past year or so. And I would say to present the success we have with one of the biggest telcos in Europe. Will not say the name here, but considering the size of the problem and the scale, I think you will easily get the name of the operator and to see the size of the problem that we were dealing with here. So as you all know, the challenge here is immense, and we're talking about billions of dollars in the various fundings. Basically, the race is on between telco companies, but also within countries, how to provide the fastest possible telecommunication service to their customers or citizens. As you will see, the problem is not so trivial because the network planning itself is a complex domain. You need a lot of experience. If you don't do it right, then you have a significant costs in the construction phase. And this is something that we were dealing with initially, trying to find the right measure, trying to find the right teams. And I think we did a great job here, and I'm very proud of the team, and I would like today to share the results with you all. So basically, as I've said, there is a significant gap between the needs, actual needs in the network planning and basically, especially in FTTH, but also in 5G now. And that's something that I would say it's never easy to have the team ready inside the telcos, and the cost base is increasing for this kind of activity. And the ramping up for telcos, it's almost impossible the way we did it in HTEC. Like the problem initially was, as they say, we were going from zero to hero. So we didn't have any experience in the beginning. We were just had some experience in creating cross-functional software teams. And without any knowledge in this type of activity, we basically organize it from the scratch. And now it's about 50 people and I would say the plan is to go rapidly to 150 people in the end. So we said here, like we mentioned here, Silicon Valley DNA and what it actually means. It means like to do things in agile way, and it also means how to fast disseminate knowledge within these various teams, and also to organize it in a way that you always have senior people in the team, that you have a good team structure, as we say, but also to have the talent you need at that particular time. And it's not so easy, you know. And the one way of doing it in software industry is to have virtual teams, and we did exactly that. So we source various talents from each of the development centers that HTEC is present. And basically, we then incorporate and also redistribute senior members of the team. As you have newcomers going in, then we disseminate knowledge, as I've said, and you have like people of various seniority going into different teams and trying to convey the necessary experience in this type of job, of activity, you know. So that includes also team onboarding, that includes also certifications. Let's not forget that we're dealing with various types of tools here, that it's not so easy to find people that are already accustomed to or know anything about this. So even though these are GIS types of tools like AutoCAD or QGIS, you will not find people sufficiently ready that can do that from a very beginning and be productive from the very beginning. So as I've said, the initial team consisted of very senior people, among which also is Natasha present here. And as we mentioned, these people have 20 years of experience in designing access networks, but also more than 10 years also in designing FTTH infrastructure, fiber to the home. And also the key factor for this project was a language, you know. And I lived for a while in Germany, and I know for sure for this type of projects, the language is a barrier, especially where you have documentation protocols and standards you need to adhere to, you know. And for this to work, we also presented team structure in a way that will have, for each team to have a person that's, let's say, good, proficient in German, that can help their colleagues, or also write an email, help with the documentation or something else. And I think that was also key to success of this project. And we see the numbers here. It's, as you can see, like 40 team members had planned more than 16,000 FTTH, so home connections. So as we say, households here, in various regions of Germany, you know. And we basically were able, but just doing the math properly in terms of organization and how we organize the teams, and also the way we do billing, to cut costs to about 20 to 30% for sure, you know. We were able to adapt pretty quickly for this, at least for this 40 people we are talking about, and the plan is to extend this to 150, sorry, to relatively quickly get certified in the proprietary tools that our client uses for this kind of documentation, and also to make the process efficient enough, you know, in terms of workflow, and to design it in a way that we can guarantee the time and the results, you know. And you'll see later how we're able to achieve this by combining various techniques in project management. So basically, we started with a 3-year partnership here, and setting the, let's say, the area of expertise, especially for FTTH project or FTTH design, network design. But we also have a very flexible pricing model, good methodology. I already mentioned something. We're gonna see some more details about that. And we use various and very specific software tools in order to make this more faster, like leveraging on the artificial intelligence and the automatic network planning, you know. And as you can see here, I'm very proud of this sentence. I've got it in one of the emails from the client, that we accomplished here something that is very rare. You know, basically, we took the experience from the industry that is well versed in this digital world, and we moved that, transplanted that, if I may say so, in this space that is, I would say, very conservative in a way that the job was done before, you know. And I'm talking here about telecoms, and also talking about nearshoring, about team responsibility, you know. And I think this was the keys of success. So previous experience from these digital markets and the ways we do job, and now to take this and transplant this into this old type, if I may say so, all type of activity. So here's something about the Agile process that we did. Basically, with the help of our project manager Nada and various people from our project management office, and we did, let's say, some thinking and planning. And one of the things that we did, that this process is not perfectly, let's say, ready for Scrum. So we did a combination of Kanban and Scrum, and because Kanban is more, let's say, workflow oriented. And for me as a manager, I can very easily see the bottlenecks in this, even though like it's complex stuff of now even couple of teams and let's say 50 people almost. We see exactly if we have some, let's say, system problems. When I say system, in terms of protocol between HTEC and the client, and we see bottlenecks there immediately after they occur, you know. So we use Jira for that, and tools basically that we do every day in our software and software business, and what we actually doing with our cross-functional teams, you know. So no magic there, but I would say this kind of activity is well suited for the activity that we have for the planning. We also have various stuff. This is why this is actually called Scrumban. And we also have a lot of events from Scrum in order to make it more iterative and to improve in each particular cycle. Because in the beginning, for sure, we were not so efficient, we were not so quick. A lot of people were doing this for the first time. And in the beginning, the things were not so smooth. And if I may say now, after you know, a couple of iterations, a couple of months of billing, various areas that we did for our client, things were improved drastically, you know. And I think this is also very important, and I think we're getting even more efficient as the time goes by. I'll say a few words here about the demand and the specific nature of work that we're dealing with here. So even though it can look, let's say, very simple, this kind of work has its own, let's say, caveats or problems in terms of different regulations, various security and fire hazard protocols and other stuff that you need to have in the documentation. So like lots of things has to be respected here. And if you don't do that, a lot of costs can be hidden, and later in the construction phases, the client will face that. And I think everything now it's going to be late. And so if you don't adhere to this particular standards, particular way of doing things, even though in the beginning it can be for the client, it can be like that we are fast enough. Later on, you will have various problems in the construction phase. So I would say it is very important that you have senior persons in every team. And this is how we also started the project. This was very, I think this is crucial for in the beginning. As I've said, I think not to go into this before, but especially for this kind of new infrastructure and what's going on also in 5G sector, we tend to use already capacity that we already have in terms of pipe capacity. Labor costs had to be considered, all the previous infrastructure of telcos, but also other infrastructure that you can deal with in terms of, I don't know, gas or any other sort of infrastructure that you can have within this construction phase has to be taken into account. For the software that we use, we are now using TeleCAD GIS. That's basically extension of AutoCAD 3D platform, and we use that. It's used in a lot of other telecom operators, but we are proud to say that we have a good relationship with this software company, and they're providing us, unlike QGIS, they're providing us with various other mechanisms, let's say, and also formats, output formats that we do output documentation. So we are able actually to use automatic planning, and then we actually improve that and package that for the end delivery to the client. Here are some of the examples of the work being done for our client. Obviously, because of the data secrecy, we cannot here put the complete photos of the documentation or something like that. But I would say this is the actual work being done on various backgrounds. Here, either using OpenStreetMaps or here Google Maps is being used, and the documentation you see here. And all these are formed under the requests of the client with detailed technical descriptions. This is, let's say, just one of the elements that the end documentation is containing. And here's also something that I can say with, let's say, the possibilities that we have here for the future. You know, I would say this type of work and looking at what HTEC is doing with other clients, particularly in for GIS software, maps, and various other things that we do, I think we're in a unique position right now to also provide other services in terms of integration of the infrastructure that we plan with the other various inventory systems in telcos. And I would say also, considering the stuff and the expertise we have in the digital twin models, that would be the next future step that we can offer also to our telco clients. And for me, this looks very interesting. I think this is it's not just about the future itself, but it's also about the possibility to plan the infrastructure in unusual ways that we cannot foresee at the moment, you know. And it also puts us in a situation where you actually have a lot of expertise in terms of the domain itself. And we also have the necessary workforce to complete the, let's say, custom, very specific and custom software, like something that we do for, let's say, some of the Fortune 500 clients that we have. We can now implement such systems all the way, having in mind previous experience that we learned during this planning of the access networks, but also hopefully 5G towers tomorrow. Okay, I suppose this was not, let's say, too long for you, so maybe we have lots of time for questions and maybe discussions here. Maybe I'm thinking now, maybe let's say, made this too direct in the beginning, so we can also discuss it more about the work itself and its, let's say, importance in terms of, like, even the general population and the societies we get, and also how this type of activity covers like various factors in terms of rural depopulation and what this means actually from the countries that we do business with, and telco operators also, sorry. So that's also something open for discussion here.
Thank you, Bojan. I'd like to invite everybody to leave your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll address those very quickly. While we're waiting for people to type these out, I had a few things I wanted to ask you. First of all, for HTEC, that has been, you know, more than 10 years positioned as an technology partner to some of the world's leading companies working on digital product development. This type of application of our skills was also relatively new to us, and you talked really nicely about bringing some of this expertise, and especially in the domain of project management methodologies, to this new area and this new sector. One of the ways you said was through these distributed teams, and you talked how you organize that, but I wanted to ask you, what are some of the main challenges in working with distributed teams in this setup and on this particular technology, and how you were able to overcome those?
That's a very, very good question. I would say in the beginning, I would say the people that were not used to this type of work. So they were used to tight teams, being in the office all the time, exchanging information along the way. And now it's a bit different, you know. And that also comes with some good stuff, but also some bad stuff. And you need to integrate these kind of teams for the first time. So that was the major challenge, I would say. Like leveraging cloud tools today, I don't think we have any sort of technical problem. So it's quite easy to exchange this type of files, to share the screen, to, you know, have remote calls. So we hadn't had any challenge there, I would say, but like having the team really to function as a team, that was the main challenge. So people weren't used even to have daily meetings, or to also to report things in Jira, for instance. So that was new, you know, but with time and with experienced project manager, and also with the tight alignment with the leaders that we have, we overcame this quite fast, I would say.
Okay. Great. And another question I had, you discussed here in your last slide a little bit about what the next steps could be for this type of work, and integrating with different tool sets and so on, and applying it to other infrastructure planning type of projects. But can you maybe, I mean, it's independent of this work in particular, but you do have a lot of experience in the telco sector in general. What do you see are some of the key technology challenges for telco companies right now and what are some of the trends that you're anticipating in the next couple of years?
Well, I would say this is a complex question and depends of a lot of things, you know. We're now I would say the telcos are heavily investing in the infrastructure right now. What I have problems with, I see there is potential use cases are not so clear, and especially we are talking about 5G technology and the Internet of Things, you know. And this is, I believe, the space for companies. So for companies as HTEC to fill in this gap, you know, because we have a massive experience in terms of new technologies and very interesting use cases that we can also, let's say, bring to this type of activities using that experience, but also giving the impact for or value to this new infrastructure that the telcos now will provide, you know. So that's one of the challenges and also the opportunity. The other thing I see is also, even if you have this sort of complexity, the things are getting tight in terms of the budgets. So it's not the same, are you using the infrastructure, for instance, for telecommunications or for IoT, and what kind of infrastructure are you using in the background, you know? And this question is really particularly interesting for me because I have a lot of experience in this field. And I see telcos leveraging even now, but especially in the future, leveraging on the cloud technology. And that is going to move right now. They're like, we are now in the space of providing, for instance, virtual machines or something like that, but even more to the software as a service tools. And probably we're going to see in the future, in the near future, some kind of virtual telecommunication infrastructure that I would say leverages the elasticity of the cloud. And when I say that, it means to take as much infrastructure as you actually need in that particular moment, considering the traffic. And for that, you need extremely good DevOps and software engineers. And where telecoms right now losing the battle is to have this talent and to engage that and to hire them. And I think companies like HTEC can help immensely there.
Great. Any in particular, perhaps new security considerations that telcos need to have in light of everything that you just mentioned, and any support that you foresee HTEC and other companies can provide in this area?
Well, I would say like security is a completely different story right now. And let me just say, in terms of the work that's being done right now by HTEC, security of the data is of major concern. And we're basically adhering to the various security standards imposed by the client, but also have a lot of these standards implemented on our own in HTEC. But if you're talking about telco security of the telecommunications, data, infrastructure, all of that is very complex matter. I cannot, for instance, I'm not a security expert, and I cannot, maybe in terms of IP networks, I can give some kind of educated guess here. But I would say the question is so complex that we would need a separate panel for that. How to address these particular issues in IoT, in embedded systems, and various stuff that telcos are going to provide tomorrow. I would say, like a general thought here, that things are going to move more, let's say, in the way how we do software security right now, we as a company, HTEC, and how to move that in terms of transplant it to the ways and processes being done in telcos. So where I see the highest possible standards in security right now is the software being built for instance, banks or payment gateways or something like that. So we'll see more and more of that standards incorporated into telco software and telco services.
Great, thanks for sharing those thoughts. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A, and many thanks to Natasha and Nenad for interacting with our participants. Daniel wanted to know more about how you overcame the language barrier. Now, you talked a little bit in your introduction about this and how it was important to have people speaking the language of your client in the project, but maybe you can be a bit more specific in terms of, have you been able to assess what percentage of people or what are the actual skills and how you distribute them across the team to make this functional and to make the flow of information with the client and the work on the project most efficient?
Well, for me, my experience in, let's say, my experience of living in Germany helped. And I somehow had in the beginning, I had a gut feeling this sort of expertise, if I may say, so language proficiency will be the key for success of this project, and how we actually did it. Like I was thinking, there is no way that you can actually find all the people that are proficient and fluent in German right now in this part of the world, and German by itself, it's not an easy language to learn. And we actually came to the idea that at least we need to have one person that is very fluent in German, per team. So initially that was our main goal, either for that person to be a senior engineer or maybe a scrum master or somebody who's used to communicating with people. So when we actually came to the realization of the project, we've seen that there are more people than we actually hoped for in the beginning that are so to say let's say proficient in German. So right now we are somewhere, I think more than 35, even 40% of people now speaks German to some extent, but let's say they're able to communicate things with the client either through an email or through a direct conversation.
Great, thanks for sharing that. There's a really great question from an anonymous attendee, and it is how big of an impact does this project have on HTEC as a company? Now, if I can add my 2 cents, I would like you to address this topic from 2 angles. One is the angle of our clients and what kind of value this brings to not just the clients we're working on right now in this particular area, but any future clients and clients in other sectors. And then from the other perspective of our team, what kind of value this type of project and building our expertise in this area has for our team. And any general comments you have on how this project has affected HTEC.
Well, that's a great question, actually. And I like it because I love HTEC, and really I love when I say love and not like, and I mean that. I love being here together with all of these people. And initially, I thought it's going to be interesting because we were strictly speaking a software company. Yes, we were providing engineering services, but this was the first time that we did something other than custom software or maybe infrastructure in the cloud, So it was very interesting to see how people react. That we now have, in the beginning, it was strange. Who are these new people? Like we're having some, let's say, grannies and grandpas here or something like that. So that was interesting in the beginning. So I would say things started to change gradually. And even I always like to say diversity helps immensely in terms of building software or dealing with any sort of engineering, So I see this as right now as a great potential. We were still haven't tapped into it for 100% in terms of getting these both parties to produce something really exciting and in terms of, for instance, new software, a new solution, something like that. But I would say gradually also HTEC is starting to change, that we're not just, I don't know, coding company, but we're providing a value for our clients in a different ways, you know. And I think this is the biggest possible value that we can have here.
Great. We have a question from Alexander on whether it is possible to use this or do this on mobile devices. I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but maybe.
Oh my God, maybe I can. Maybe I'm starting to understand, but like, I don't know. I hope we have also our clients here today. But some of this technology is like more 1992 than it's actually 2023. You know, so we're not talking about mobile. We still don't have, for instance, a good web view of these applications that we use, you know, and there's also a good opportunity. So I would say we are miles apart of using something on mobile. There are potential applications where we see, for instance, in British telecoms now, that field engineers are bringing a lot of applications with them on the field. And there is something new, but we're still this part of planning and accessing the infrastructures in terms of GIS databases. That is, I would say, still years away of mobile access right now, considering the state of the ecosystem with our client in our client ecosystem. Yeah.
And we also have another question from one of our attendees on whether you see possibilities for this way of working to provide value in other spheres other than telecommunications, where there is still no agile approach. You talked a little bit about other types of infrastructure, but maybe you can go into a bit more detail.
Yes, I think there's a lot of potential there, especially in for instance, mechanical engineering or something like that. I'm not sure if we are still quite there in terms of the design and the engineering potential, we as a company, but I think there is a great deal of potential. And I would say it is also very important, culturally speaking, where the client is there in terms of does the client want to have this sort of, let's say, I don't like the term outsource, but let's say to outsource this kind of engineering services, or it likes to keep, he likes or she likes to keep them for themselves, you know. So this is the first question. Also, I would say, if you have this sort of busy idle cycle that we have here, so, and that tends to be very expensive for keeping that such a team in-house, then there's also a lot of opportunity for HTEC. For instance, this sort of network planning is very specific in terms that you can have a lot of work in a year or two, and then you don't have anything to do, you know, like there's no work to be done. And for that, it's very hard to scale up or scale down for telco companies. They're like more structured. The decision is harder to, decisions are in general harder to implement. So agile companies doing work in this way, this is also very convenient for these companies. So this is my answer, you know. For other industries for this to work in other industries, the industry should be digitalized. So you cannot like teletransport or someone in Germany or in US. The industry should be digitalized, and this kind of busy idle cycle also would help. So you suddenly have a lot of work to do and you don't have a proper team, so you can take somebody else to do that for you. So that's a perfect scenario.
Okay, great. Those are all great examples. There's a really great question from Damian, who wants to know if there's still a possibility to apply for the job. You mentioned scaling the team further.
Yes, for sure. We need more people. We need quality people. We also employ, I would say, top talent here. So by any means, do apply.
Yeah, I mean, you can check out our open positions page on the HTEC website, or just get in touch with any of us directly on LinkedIn if you'd like. There's another question we have in the chat, and that is, did the project management methodology applied here make the biggest difference compared to the traditional way of working in the telco industry? Or is that like the thing that brought most value to the client?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Did the project management methodology itself that we applied bring the biggest value to the client, or are there any other things that you would like to mention?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I think the combination of things is really, let's say, value proposition, really good value proposition here for our clients. So I would say the agility of the company itself, not just the process. So how we organize various other processes around this, how we make our own leaders, the entrepreneurship contained in everything that we do, right? So this is not something particularly related to this project, you know, Katarina, that we like our concept of engineering managers and engineering leads. This is also, I think, very beneficial here, but also the tools we use, how we distribute senior people, all of that I mentioned here, a combination of that is, I would say, great value proposition.
And somewhat connected to that, Nebusha is also asking, from your point of view, what do you see the biggest challenges of switching from infrastructure planning as a service to software development services and projects in telco?
There is a, we are definitely not, let's say, discussing same type of workforce here. So this is going to be, these are going to be different teams, but if we are working together on the same project, I would say we'll need a little of adaptation, if I may say, to each other's way of working in terms of software engineers, how they come to a problem, and also GIS engineers. But I think we already have this kind of examples within some other big, huge companies that we do business with. And I'm sure we're gonna come to agreement in like no time.
I really like this question from Alexander, and that is, do they, and I assume this refers to the client, recognize our courage in doing this, in addition to the fact that, you know, with regards to our previous company references, does the client recognize the courage in what we've done here?
I think the client does recognize it, and I think this is also particularly important. We're not changing just HTEC or the way our client is doing, because we're changing also the client's organization, because we also, let's say, do things in a particular way, and we also ask our client to provide a particular person, a point of contact, to do things more in agile way. But also I feel that we're bringing also changes into in this workforce market in this part of the world, because all of a sudden people that were, let's say, tied up to a local market in terms of what are they doing, we are now exposing these people to the different international telco companies, and I think this is a huge value. I don't know if our client recognize that in terms of like immediately, but I think this is a huge value, and this is something that we as an HTEC can do, can have a lot from in terms of investment, you know, and how these people like are now bringing value to the company.
I think this also answers the following question, which was on expanding this type of work to other telco companies, and if that's planned. And I'd say the answer is definitely.
Yes, we had some conversations about that, and we're hoping really, like we're working really hard on that. And I think we are on a way there, just to, let's say, to be recognized, and to, let's say, for other telcos to use this kind of planning and to use all the benefits, to reap all the benefits from this kind of planning process. So I'm pretty sure we're getting there.
Great. And we have just enough time for the last question that we have in the Q&A. And thanks to everybody who's been really active in asking questions. In every planning, engineering-wise, there is a certain imbalance of understanding the project between planning and on-site work because planners lack on-site visits. Have you had any ideas on how to tackle that?
Like we discussed it already, and that's a really good question. And that's somebody with experience there. I can say that from like very first thing that you mentioned that. Well, I can say we're not doing just planning here. We're also doing something that's called as-built documentation. So this is the stuff that comes back to us after the construction is done, you know. And this also ensures that you're very serious in terms of what kind of plans we are packaging and deliver to our client. So I would say from the responsibility angle, I would say we are already there because we do a lot of this as built documentation and we're hoping of doing more. But as you mentioned, are there any other stuff that we can do in terms of, let's say, providing the support in this construction phase? I would say yes. And there is also a lot of new technology approaches for that. And I'm not saying like a sci-fi distant future. I already seen, for instance, a lot of 3D, very like scanners in terms of scanning the infrastructure. Like we're talking about centimeter resolution here, and so basically my answer is yes. This is something to discuss more, but I would say technologically speaking, we could provide more, at least insight of what's happening in the field, and we would use some kind of new technology there, but that's already on the shelf. This is not something, let's say, to have in a year or so. And you can have for let's say, I would say a certain couple of tens of thousands of euros, you can have really good scanners. We also have experience from other areas, for instance, drone pictures, something like that, that we, for our other clients also in my division, in infrastructure division, we do a lot of work that's covering the construction in terms of real-time data by getting the pictures from drones and then, let's say, doing the artificial intelligence stuff and recognizing some certain elements on that in order to provide the exact information about the rate of or pace of construction.
Thank you, Bojan, so much. We're out of time, and thankfully we were able to answer all the questions. To conclude the session, I just want to say something. You mentioned earlier a thing that honestly didn't occur to me previously, and that is kind of one of the end results of this type of work. One of the impacts we're generating, if you want to look at it on wider, society as a whole, and one of them is, improving rural connectivity. And I really never thought about the impact that this work has positively on the communities that gets the outcome of this work. And it's really so much in line with our clear dedication to be working on projects that engineer a better future and not be doing other types of work. So congratulations to you, to Natasha, Nenad, and the whole team. Really amazing what you've been able to accomplish here, and we can't wait to see the further implications and new exciting projects in Telco moving on. So thank you for joining us and taking the time to share this with everybody.
Thank you, Katarina.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you in 10 minutes for our next session. Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, bye.